President.
The senator from Virginia.
Mr. President, in 2013, in my first year in the Senate, a 10-year-old child in Virginia, Loudoun County, named Gabriella Miller, passed away from an inoperable brain tumor. Nothing could be worse for a family. Her parents, Ellen and Mark, and her brother suffered greatly in this, but as many do, in an amazing way, in a mysterious way, in a time of suffering, they turn their tragedy into a cause. Shortly after I came to the Senate, Mark and Ellen Miller came to see me and talked to me about their daughter, Gabriella. And they asked me a question. Senator, what percentage of medical research in this country is devoted to pediatric conditions? I thought, well, pediatric, under age 18, maybe it's, 12% of the population, so I guessed 12%. They said less than 1%. Less than 1% of medical research funding in the NIH and other agencies was devoted to pediatric conditions. There was a kind of it was a conventional wisdom that, no, we don't put research into that, but if we can research adult conditions, we can kind of apply it to pediatric conditions, which everyone here knows that's not the case. Many pediatric conditions are very different than adult conditions. So I began to work with the Miller family on a bill to increase research at the NIH and other federal agencies for pediatric conditions, especially pediatric cancers of the kind that killed Gabriella Miller. The following year, in 2014, I partnered with Virginia Congressman and then a Republican leader in the Senate, Eric Cantor, and others to pass the Gabriella Miller Kids First Pediatric Research Program to fund NIH research on pediatric cancer. And the 10-year bill that we passed is up for reauthorization this year. I've partnered with Senator Jerry Moran, my colleague from Kansas, to reauthorize it with the support of colleagues on both sides, numerous colleagues. The Republican House has passed a version of this bill. The lead sponsor on the House side is Congresswoman Jennifer Wexton, who is retiring because she has been diagnosed with an aggressive form of supranuclear palsy, which is an advanced form of Parkinson's disease. My colleague Jennifer Wexton is no longer able to speak without an AI-assisted device. But in this last few days of her time in the House, she has made the passing of the reauthorization of the Gabriella Miller Act her chief priority. The reauthorization was included in the health package in the bipartisan version of the CR bill that we negotiated with the House. But that package was left on the cutting room floor of the CR that was just passed the House, and advocates of the bill, including Ellen and Mark Miller and others who care about pediatric research, were bitterly disappointed. I'm going to vote for the CR when it comes over from the House. But if I'm going to have to explain to advocates that I share their disappointment for the fact that this 10-year program, which has now produced more than $125 million in research into pediatric cancer, is going to be left on the floor, I have to at least make an effort here on the floor to authorize this program going forward. The good news is the bill that Representative Wexton has put in the House was authorized flat funding for another 5 years, and I give credit to my colleagues on the Senate Help Committee because the Gabriella Miller Act was reauthorized in the Senate for 10 years at an increasing level of funding, beginning at the current funding level of $12.5 million a year, escalating to $25 million over the course of 10 years. But time is late. No time to fool around. The bill that has passed not only a committee but a House was passed in the House of Representatives, 5-year funding at its current level, $12.5 million a year, to continue to invest in research into children's cancer and pediatric conditions. I respect my colleagues' sincere commitment to responsible federal budgeting. And one of my colleagues, Senator Paul, I've worked with him to hopefully lift an objection that he had to this bill by agreeing to work with him to make sure that there's not other overlapping programs where we're spending money to do the same thing. We have recently talked about other legislative initiatives that we'll work on together. My understanding as I stand here today is with this commitment I've made to Senator Paul, he's dropping any objection to including this by unanimous consent. And I think while it's not everything I hoped, and it's not everything that the Senate Help Committee did in a bipartisan way, it would continue this important program. Gabriella Miller, when she was diagnosed with brain cancer at age 10, didn't go quietly into the good night. I think that's a Dylan Thomas line. She instead said, I'm going to raise every bit of money I can for cancer research. And in the last year of her life, she raised hundreds of thousands of dollars in cancer research on her own with little bake sales and fundraisers, and the brain tumor that was in her brain was the size of a walnut, and she created a nonprofit foundation called the Smashing Walnuts Foundation. And the comments that I make tonight and the effort that I undertake with Representative Wexton truly are to honor her and to thank her parents for their advocacy. In particular, I really want to thank her mother, Ellen Miller, who's been a force of nature in creating this program and keeping it going. And we need to keep it going. It's bipartisan, it's bicameral, and it's making groundbreaking research possible. I ask my colleagues to let it pass into law. And so, Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that, as if in legislative session, we should ask the Committee on Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions be discharged from the further consideration of H.R. 3391, and the Senate proceed to its immediate consideration.
The clerk will report.
H.R. 3391, an act to extend the Gabriella Miller Kids First Pediatric Research Program at the National Institutes of Health and for other purposes.
Without objection, the committee is discharged, and the Senate will proceed to the measure.
I ask unanimous consent that the bill be considered read a third time.
Without objection.
I know of no further debate on the bill.
Is there further debate? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The bill is passed.
I ask that the motion to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table.
Without objection.